talking about function notation and what it means. So remember, the most important thing, probably today, or one of the two most important things, is that when you see f of x, it really means the same thing as a y. So just so you remember that. The cool thing is, whenever you see a number in the parentheses, all that's doing is telling you what to plug in for the x. So it works like this. If I see f of 5, what I do is everywhere I see an x after the equal sign, I put a parentheses. So this is like saying 2 times parentheses. What goes in the parentheses? A 5 plus 3. Or in other words, this is saying 10 plus 3, which is 13. So this number that they shoved in this parentheses here, I just put in for the x. That's it. That's all it's saying. So if I look at the next one, and I do that one, that's saying f of negative 1 now. I write down the same thing, 2 times something, that's my x, plus 3, and the something that goes in this time is negative 1. So 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, plus 3 more is positive 1. And this time, instead of shoving in the 5, I shoved in negative 1. So kind of the cool thing about function notation is it tells you what to shove in if there's a number in the parentheses. In the last one, they do the opposite kind of thing. They tell me what my answer is, and they're saying, hey, find out what I should have put in for the x. So remembering that f of x really means the same thing as the y value, then what I'm going to do is when I write this one, I'm going to write down 11 equals 2x plus 3 and solve that. Because the 11 that they're giving me, this thing right here, so this 11 that you're shoving in is the same thing as the y value. We talked about how that's the y. And now I just need to solve this equation. So instead of writing down f of x equals blah, 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 you write down 11, because it's the same as my y value. That's all you've got to do. So now I've got to solve this thing. First thing that I'm going to do after I write that down is I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So if I minus 3 from here and minus 3 from here, I now get 8. Oh, crud. I now get 8 is equal to 2x, because I minused off 3 from both sides. And now what would I do to find the x? Divide by 2. And when I divide by 2, I find out that my x value is 4. So this is saying that if I knew that my answer was 11, the number I wanted to shove in was 4. So we did the backwards thing. Instead of finding the y answer, or the f of x, they gave it to us, and then we go backwards and find out what the number was that was the x value. In number 2, they give you an equation, blah, 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 and when they give you that equation, they say find these values. So we just got done doing that, and they tell us, first of all, that the f function, which they use in A and B, so this thing, is what we're going to be finding in the first two. And then, the second part, they tell us that we're going to look for the g function. So here's g stuff. And the g stuff is dealing with this graph over here to the right. And whenever you see f of something or g of something, it's saying look for the y value or the dependent value based on what you're shoving in. I want you to take about, I don't know, 5.5 minutes, try to find those 4 answers. But you'd like to. Alright. First couple problems. F of 8 means plug in an 8. So in the first one, I've got, holy moly! Who's squealing over there?
You.
I've got 2 times 8 plus 5 all over 8, because that's the x, minus 3. On the top, that's 16 and 5, so 21. And on the bottom, 5. Done.
Wow, just listen.
That's it.
I told you how to do that.
Thank you.
You don't need to say.
Second one is 2 times negative 7 plus 5. So on the top, that's negative 14 and 5. That's negative 9.
Whatever.
I can't.
And on the bottom, I have negative 7 minus 3, which is
Or.
negative 10. Good job. And then if you simplify, you get 9/10.
Are you sad?
No.
You know he is.
Only when I look at you.
Oh, that's bogus.
Are you talking to Jasmine?
No, he's talking to Kanisha.
Oh.
Yes, he
Can I get a bus, please? Because you both threw each other under it. In G of 1,
Well, then say that then.
that's so 90s. G of 1 means look at the 1 and then go find the y value. So when I find the y value, that's just 3. And G of negative 2 means look at negative 2 on the x-axis. Here it is. Find the y value. And the y value is 0. Done.
You said that's so.
The thing inside the parentheses is the x. So go look at the picture. And the number, the first number was a 1. Here's the 1 right here. I go up and I say, okay, what's the y value? And the y value is 3. So that's the answer for the first one. The second one says, look at the x value of negative 2. Here's negative 2 right here. And the y value, since it's touching the x-axis, is 0. So that's why the answer is 0. Really? Okay.
Alright.
Thank you. So what we discovered by looking at the 2 points on the line that we wrote down is that number 1, our slope was 8 over 2, which is 4. We saw that the y-intercept was negative 5. So we wrote down y equals 4x minus 5. The f of x is the same as y, so we rewrote it in the new function way. Take each of the numbers, plug them in. You get 7 and negative 17. Put them together, you get negative 10. So there's a small process to go through in order to find the value that you want with adding those together. In the part B, if we do the same kind of thing, if I put the 10 in, now for the x, 4 times 10 is 40, minus 5 is 35. Then I can also put in the negative 2 for the x. So 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 minus 5 is negative 13. So I'm multiplying 35 and negative 13. Holy moly, I have no idea what that is.
Negative 455.
455? Thank you. Negative 455. We're going to skip letter C for right now. And we're going to do the last 3. So in the last 3, what I notice is this time they give me the answer. They want me to find the x's. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have that number equal to the equation and then solve it. So for example, in letter D. In letter D, I'm going to say that my 19 is equal to 4x minus 5. Because the 19 is what comes out. Then I solve that equation. And if I solve that equation, I have to get rid of this minus 5 on this side. How do I get rid of that minus 5? Go plus 5. So add 5 to both sides. You'll end up with 4x on the right. And if I add 5 to 19, I get 24. And then to get rid of the 4, I just divide both sides by 4. And I get x is 6. So in letter D, the answer is 6. Or in other words, the number 6 shoved in for the x would produce a 19. In letter E, if I do that one, Same exact problem really as letter D with a different number. This time I'm going to start out with -3. And that's going to be equal to the 4x minus 5. And then I add 5 to both sides and I get 4x is equal to 2. Divide both sides by 4 and x is 1/2. Or you can go with 0.5, either one's fine. And then the last one, again, the same kind of problem. This time we start with 15, and that's 4x minus 5. Add 5 to both sides, and your 4x is now equal to 20. Divide both sides by 4, and your x is 5. So if they start out telling you what the f of x is, you set that equal to the equation, whatever's on the other side. If they tell you what to plug in, you shove that into the x value and out pops your f of x or your y value.